Hi, everybody. I'm Richard Sher, and it's time to square off with our very special panelist, former U.S. Senator Ben Cardin, who's given 60 years of his life to public service and 80 of his 80 years of your life to Myrna. How you doing, Ben? Welcome.
Well, Richard, it's good to be on your show. It's good to be here with my rabbi, Rabbi Wohlberg. I thank Rabbi Wohlberg, I thank Jayne Miller, and I thank Jimmy Mathis for informing the public, which is something we need to do today. You asked how am I doing? I think all of us are pretty well uh, shocked by what we see happening in government and around the world. I think my message, and one of the reasons I'm really pleased to be on your show, is that I want to see a more active constituency. And to have a more active constituency, they need to be informed. One of my missions is for people to have a better understanding of history because we see events today that we've seen before in history, and I think the public needs to understand that. We also need how they can be effective in the way that they get engaged. More civic education is desperately needed in our community.
Okay.
And then lastly, how they conduct themselves. Civility is desperately needed. So I thank you, Richard, for giving us a platform to try to carry out that responsibility that all of us need to be engaged with.
Thank you, Ben. We're delighted to have you. And also on this week's panel, former TV news star reporter, current podcaster Jayne Miller. We have a podcaster and a fabulous talk show host, Jimmy Mathis. And returning to Squirrel after a brief hiatus, one of this program's longtime panelists, and of course, a spiritual leader for all of us, Rabbi Mitchell Wohlberg.
Good to be here.
Well, the Republicans gave President Trump lots of standing ovations, while Democrats, who were constantly lambasted by Trump, sat quietly, some yelling at Trump, others holding signs that said liar, fire Musk, and more. The address to the joint session lasted 99 minutes, which was a record. Trump began his address with 3 words: America is back. Is America back, Jimmy Mathis?
Well, we're on the path of getting back. The reality is this country right now spends 1.2 trillion more than it brings in. Illegal immigration has not been dealt with since I've been alive. We went from 156,000 boarding crossers last year to 8,000 this year. Benjamin Netanyahu definitely believes that we're on the right path. We've rebuilt a very damaged relationship with Israel. It looks like Trump has brought Zelensky back to the table to try to bring peace in Ukraine, a war that started months after Trump left the White House. So I believe he is on the right track. Look, people that don't support Donald Trump, they're never going to support Donald Trump. But these are real issues that have to be dealt right now. And to see a president that's willing to make the tough decisions and to start putting us back onto the path of sovereignty needs to happen. And I was very happy what he said earlier this week.
Jayne, is America back?
America's going backwards. I mean, obviously, some of his policies are really harmful to human rights. He has created very tense relationships with our neighbors, our closest neighbors. He's created very tense relationships with our neighbors around the world. I think that there's a pretty good number of people. I think I've seen some polling that people don't think America's on the right track. And it's tough to see a week that goes by that we don't have a lot of chaos. I think chaos is the word that I hear most used these days.
Right.
You know, impose tariffs, take them down. Fire people, bring them back. I mean, it's a chaotic administration. And you know, the economy, markets, et cetera, they want control and certainty. And we don't have certainty with what's going on today.
Rabbi Wohlberg, welcome to the show. What are your thoughts?
It's good to be back. What are my thoughts? I have to be careful about what I say because Trump might be watching and, you know, he'll seek revenge. America is back. America never went away, but Trump is taking it in a direction where it's never been before. And I hope it doesn't get where he's taking it because it is becoming an autocratic a situation here in the United States where members of Congress are afraid to express their feelings. And this is the beginning of what could be a disaster for the American people. And Senator Cardin is absolutely correct. All of us have to know what's going on and speak out about it.
All right, Ben, is America back?
America's strength is in its values. We are the leader of the free world. We've seen a decline globally of countries that are democratic and people that are living in democratic states. We've seen a weakening of democratic institutions in so many of our traditional allies and friends. We now find that we have countries that are NATO allies that have backslided in their commitments to democracy. So when you say, is America back? America is the leader of the world, the free world. It's the strongest nation in the world. It's a place where people want to live. It's a magnet for individuals who want opportunity. This country has been the beacon of hope for people around the world. What Donald Trump is doing to our values is very, very problematic and concerning. He's telling that the courts, he's threatening the courts. Let me just give you one example. We fight corruption globally. We think corruption is a cancer to democratic societies. One of President Trump's executive orders suspended the Corrupt Practices Act, which now means it's okay for American companies to bribe foreign officials in order to get government work. It just speaks volumes to America not leading in the anti-corruption field. We believe in a civil service servants that are nonpartisan, career-type people. We want the very best to serve. That's being threatened under President Trump's leadership. We want to be a trusted ally with our friends. Who does he attack? Canada, Mexico, Europe? These are our traditional allies.
Right.
So is America back? America never, I agree with Jayne, we've never been gone. We are the leader of the world. We saw under President Biden the strengthening of the transatlantic partnership, the strengthening of NATO. All that was strengthened. We have domestic issues we have to deal with. We have immigration problems. We have cost of living problems. We have all these issues we have to deal with. And the way to deal with that is to bring our nation together, Democrats and Republicans, to deal with these problems, not to divide our nation.
Thank you, Senator. Good. You still can talk very well.
I'm a senator. I can talk over your gavel. Don't worry.
So, Richard, Jayne brought up the word certainty with the markets. There has been one thing for certain. In the past, we had an open door policy. There's one thing for certain. We're going to spend more than we bring in. There is one thing for certain. We're going to operate under an unaccountable, bloating government. There's one thing for certain. When it comes to free trade, we're going to operate at a disadvantage. These are all things that any reasonable person can look at and say, if we're going to be a world leader, we have to start operating on an equal playing field, which is what Trump is talking about. And I'm going to tell you something. On these tariffs and the rhetoric that we're hearing when it comes to free trade, if these tariffs are going to lead us to a point where we can't afford food, transportation, basic needs, then if there has ever been a time for a state of emergency when we need to get back to national sovereignty, it is right now. If you're telling me that because of tariffs to Mexico and Canada and China that we can't afford food, that's a problem. That's the conversation that needs to happen right now. And Trump is absolutely right. I normally have not been a fan of tariffs. Really, I haven't. But you know what? When you have trading partners that are manipulating their currency, that are tariffing us, okay, 10 to 1, 8 to 1. At some point, that needs to be addressed. Sure. Is there some organized chaos with Donald Trump? Absolutely. But look at that conversation in the Oval Office. What happened within a week? He brought Zelensky back to the table. Trump is trying to get peace in Gaza, trying to get peace in Ukraine, something that has not happened for the last 4 years. Yes, you need to bring both partners to the table. What Trump is asking for, let's go mining. Let's rebuild your country. You will have your security. By de facto, American dollars, ports, housing, jobs, end the war, end the killing. Nobody's talking about that.
Well, you are.
When you say nobody's talking about that, Trump isn't encouraging anybody to talk about it. He's doing everything by executive fiat because he's president of the United States, and he has his good friend, Mr. Musk, who's the president of Tesla, but nothing else. And these people are making decisions for the entire country. They're not even going through Congress, although Congress has become, what should I say, disabled, and there is no discussion and something about tariffs and something about our dealings with the Ukraine. All of these issues should have been talked about and discussed and analyzed and not literally imposed on the American people.
Rabbi, I agree with you, and I'm not a fan of executive fiat, executive orders, and the fact that Trump has been able to basically overturn everything that Biden done, it proves the point that you're saying right now. So what you're seeing with executive fiat is Trump is setting the pace of the race. Now, when he said he doesn't need Congress in that speech, I totally disagree with that.
Right.
What he now is Congress to cement what he's done via executive fiat. Or to the rabbi's point, every time you have a new administration, they're just going to nix what the previous administration did. I agree with you.
You've taken all of this in. I can see your head exploding with great thoughts. What are they?
You're referring to who?
Jayne. So Jayne.
I'm sorry. Well, look, if tariffs is a policy of Trump, it's a yo-yo policy. I mean, he imposes them, he pulls them back. You know, the market's dropped, I don't know how much since he's been fooling around with these tariffs, and other countries have, retaliated with tariffs. This is not a stable economic policy. And, it's good. I think it's starting to be concerning. If you look around the country, when Republicans are holding these town halls and angry constituents are showing up, they're losing employees, they're losing government services, they're having federal government offices closed down. The wait times on trying to get through to Social Security have now tripled or something like that. I mean, there's a lot of things going on that affect every day, that affect people every day, that are having an impact. So if tariffs are his policy, then why does he impose them and pull them back?
Good question. Ben?
Well, first of all, I don't want to be lectured on the debt by the Republicans. I was part of the Congress that balanced the federal budget under President Clinton when we had a balanced federal budget. I saw what happened in 2017 on a party line vote by the Republicans that added greatly to our national deficits. Under Republican administrations, we unbalanced the budget because it was more important to have tax cuts than to balance the federal budget. So I don't want to be lectured about that. Having said that, we need to balance the federal budget. We need to come together on it. We need to establish priorities. But you need to do that in a way that is open process, using the Congress to establish the policies of our country. You can't do it by edict and by saying you're going to fire people and not carry out what the law requires you to carry out. That's the wrong way to go about doing all this. So there's a proper way to do it. And quite frankly, you only can get the budget into balance under two ways. You can reduce, you can talk about fraud and abuse all you want. It's a small percentage of the budget. The efficiency issues are small percentages. What missions do you want government to perform? And then how are you going to raise the revenues to do it? That's the discussions you have to have. And it's got to be done in a bipartisan. The last point I want to make that Jayne made a point of. If you want people to invest in America, whether they live here or live abroad, they want certainty. They don't necessarily want the policies that they think are the best. They'll lobby for that. But what they don't want is uncertainty. Uncertainty is a killer. And President Trump is creating uncertainty, and that's why the market is falling, and that's why we're going to lose investment in this country.
Senator, with all due respect, back during the Clinton administration, that budget was balanced during the dot-com era, and ever since then, we have been operating on continuing resolution after continuing resolution after continuing resolution. So there's been uncertainty going back for pushing a quarter of a century right now. And to Jayne's point, listen, for almost a decade, we were operating at negative interest rates, artificially propping up the markets that Jayne seems so concerned about. The markets went up. None of this has been funded. We have hundreds of trillions of dollars in unfunded liabilities that we're dumping on our children. And the reality is, no politician wants to have this conversation because it's political suicide. So you may hate Musk and you may not like Trump. And I'm not saying they have all the answers, but this is a hard conversation that needs to happen, or this country is going to do what so many great ones have done in the past, collapse from within. And these are tough to be dealt with.
Again, you speak of a conversation. There is no conversation. There is executive failure. Senator Cardin said that there's a proper way of doing things. The word proper is not a word that is associated with Donald Trump. Intemperate, bigoted, groping, bully, those words seem to fit a lot better than the word proper.
All right, listen, everybody. Hold on, Jimmy. We have to wait.
Bush, Obama.
Jimmy?
Yes.
We have to hear from Howard first, and we're going to continue our discussion, but we have 4 wonderful sponsors. We'd like you to support them. Here's the voice of Square Off, everybody. Howard Mallison, go ahead.
Thank you, Richard. You know, Dr. Kelly Gagan, our newest sponsor here at Square Off, is a well-respected, board-certified podiatrist and heel specialist. You know, foot problems can happen at any age, and Dr. Gagan knows that the appearance of your feet matter just as much as correcting any problems you may be experiencing. And if unsightly toenails embarrass you to wear sandals or open-toed shoes, you may be a candidate for laser treatments that solve this issue. They are safe, painless, and go right to the cause. And believe me, over-the-counter treatments don't work. So give Dr. Gagan a call at 410-753-4422 to set up an appointment. And you know, bad drivers are everywhere. That's why more and more auto accidents are on the rise. If you've experienced an accident, the insurance companies cannot tell you where to take your car. This is the reason that more drivers are trusting Leading Edge auto body and mechanical repair. Leading Edge works on all makes and models and offer free pickup and delivery anywhere in the Baltimore area. So call 410-443-6433 or visit them at 5807 Falls Road in the heart of Mount Washington. Leading Edge makes your car look and run like new again. Back to you, Richard.
All right, Annabelle and I do take our cars to Leading Edge. Jeff Siegel runs a great shop with fabulous people. And of course, Kelly Gagan is taking care of my fabulously beautiful feet. Jayne, I've never shown you my feet, but perhaps after the show. Okay? She's cool. All right. So
Can I just respond to something that Jimmy said?
absolutely.
This is, the bottom line of all that is going on in terms of federal spending is to fund $4.2 trillion in tax cuts. That's what is going on here. The Republicans have passed a budget on the House side that takes $880 million out of Medicaid, okay, for the purpose of funding a tax cut. This is what this is about, $4.2 trillion in a tax cut.
First of all, Jayne, you can't fund a tax cut.
Well, you do. You have to have revenue to fund the tax cut.
Revenue. It's not, you can't fund a tax cut. That's what you're seeing right here in the state of Maryland right now with Wes Moore. He's going after the millionaires and billionaires. No, he's not. He's going after small businesses. Don't tell me that with $4.5 trillion, we cannot run this country, fund the essentials. If you're going to honestly say that there is no waste, that we have not been spending ourselves into oblivion for decades, that's not an honest conversation, Jayne. Okay,
you're not addressing my point. My point is this is a conversation, and what is going on the fiscal balance sheet of this country is so that we can afford a $4.2 trillion tax cut, the extension of the Trump tax cuts. That's what this is about.
And maybe if Budweiser wasn't doing business in Mexico and Hershey wasn't doing business in Mexico, and we didn't make it impossible to manufacture things here in America like we did during the Great American Revolution, maybe we wouldn't be in this conversation right now. But because of liberal leadership, we have had a mass exodus out of manufacturing out of this country. And what I don't understand here is the Democrats that love.
We have had a mass exodus in manufacturing under bipartisan administrations. Okay, this is not a Democratic issue.
We need to bring manufacturing back to America. Okay, we need to be at a point in this country where tariffs can't cripple this country because we can't get goods from Canada and Mexico. That's what we need to get back to, Jayne.
So you got to set what the facts are. Manufacturing in America can be stronger. We are strong in manufacturing today. We are strong in
I
manufacturing.
don't know. You're not on this. You're not on the screen.
Pardon?
Anybody else on there?
There you go. You're back.
Okay, I'm sorry. My point was that manufacturing, we have a strong manufacturing base. We want to make it stronger, but we have a strong manufacturing base in this country. So let's get the facts correct. Jayne is absolutely accurate on that. If you go back to how we got into these deficits after we balanced the budget, it was a tax cut that got us into the deficits. If you want to know where the huge loss of revenues occurred, it was a 2017 tax cut under President Trump. And who got the benefits of that tax cut? Every American got some benefits, but the huge benefits went to the wealthy and large corporations, not small businesses. I'm chair of the Small Business Committee. And I know how the small business community responded to it. They were not treated well with the 2017 tax bill. So we've got to balance the federal budget. I agree with you on that. And there is efficiency issues that can work. But you got to understand that what Trump is doing, he's crippling programs rather than trying to say what government can do and should not do. Jayne is absolutely correct. If it's up to President Trump, he will cut the Medicaid program and the healthcare programs of this country, and will put more of the burden on the people who can less afford it. Look what the House is going to do right now. They're going to pass a budget that's going to clearly, and they don't even have the guts to tell you who they're going to knock off. They'll do these across the board cuts or push it onto the states and make the states make the decision. The bottom line is the people that can least afford it are going to be the ones that are hurt, and the tax cuts are going to benefit those who really are in fairly good shape. Everybody'd like to do better, but they don't need this type of relief.
Senator, if you're telling me that these agencies, whether it's Social Security, Medicaid, Medicare, Department of Education, any of these cannot be more efficiently run, that there is not a lot of fat in these unelected behemoth agencies up and down Constitution Avenue in Washington, D.C. I respectfully disagree with that.
I would not say that. I would never say that. I would never say that.
He
We can
just
always do things more. We can always do things more efficiently. You know, when I ran my committee, I was able to do things more efficiently. You can always do things more efficiently. So I'm not saying you can't do that. Give the rewards in the system for that. Don't tell people because they're probationary people you're fired. Don't tell that you're eliminating in our park service people that are going to preserve the park for the future. Don't delay maintenance because you say that's more efficient. That's not efficiency. That is short-sighted cuts that are going to come back to hurt our nation.
We're talking about cutting Social Security and Medicaid, and that's the rhetoric that the left is throwing out there. It's a fear tactic, and it's very disingenuous.
Hey,
They're going to cut
that is not
Medicaid.
rhetoric.
They're going to
These
cut
are
Medicaid.
budgets that slash benefits, SNAP benefits, Medicaid benefits. They're cutting Social Security employees. You want to get people frustrated? Cut employees where they can't get answers, where they can't apply for Social Security. I mean, those are the kinds of things that are going on with this kind of slash and burn policy.
And you just contradicted yourself. There's a difference between an administrative cost and a benefit cost. And Social Security needs to be dealt with. I'm not talking about means testing it or cutting benefits. It needs to be dealt with. Okay? All of these agencies do. Jayne, look, it's real simple. Can't afford it. Okay? Most civilizations collapse from within the two biggest issues, debt and immigration. I mean, I don't know what we're arguing about on this, okay? It's tough decisions that have to be made because nobody has addressed it in my lifetime. Yeah, it's tough. It needs to be dealt with, or we are going to lose our country. It's the way all civilizations collapse.
Could I get to one cut that might be a little controversial? The Republicans are going to cut dramatically the Internal Revenue Service. And our bookkeepers tell us, and we have some evidence on this of what's happened in the last 12 months. Every dollar we cut in IRS dollars for enforcement, we lose $10 in revenue. Because I was talking to an accountant yesterday. We now have more and more people that are saying, why should I even bother keeping records? The IRS can't audit my returns. Why? When I'm trying to figure out what your base is for a particular asset you're selling, the IRS will never be able to figure it out. They don't have any agents to do it. So why don't I just take a higher base than it was originally? We're finding that happening over and over again. Large companies have a load of lawyers that can figure out ways to avoid taxes, and IRS needs to be able to audit that, and they can get revenues if they do it. Now, this is not a popular subject. I understand the IRS is not popular, but let me just give you a little bit of history about Ben Cardin. I worked with Rob Portman, a Republican from Ohio, to modernize the IRS so they could do their work, so we could have a fair tax structure. It wasn't a popular thing to do. Neither one of our parties were anxious to give the IRS more resources. But one of the things about balancing the budget and having people pay their taxes, they want to know they're being treated fairly with their neighbor. And if you don't give the IRS the capacity to do that, the voluntary compliance, which is what we generally rely on in the IRS, is going to be lost. And today we are at a real risk of not being able to audit complicated tax returns because of the cuts that are going to be made. Now, I know that's not necessarily a popular subject, but it's the realities of where we are today. And this is why Republicans, their budget just does not fit the needs of America. When you say we have a bloated government, look at the number of workers we have over the history of our nation. I said we need to learn history a little bit. We have less workers per capita than we've had historically in this nation, federal workers. Look at what we do as a nation through government versus the rest of the world. We are on the low side of what we provide by government, where other countries provide a lot more services than we do. I'm not suggesting we can't reevaluate that, but let's not do it with the chainsaw that Elon Musk was using.
Can we please not pretend that the IRS is not powerful enough and that it's not draconian when it comes to United States citizens? If you make a transaction over 600,
that's a popular statement to make. Yeah, that's a popular statement. Yeah, I will not acknowledge that. I don't agree with you.
Totally
popular. Most Americans will agree with you on that, but it's just wrong.
Senator, I agree with you. If you're a major corporation or if you come from means, then you have the ability to battle a very draconian IRS. However, for the majority of Americans, we're the ones that get caught up in the dragnet of what I believe is a very abusive government agency. It doesn't mean that we don't need an IRS. It doesn't mean that there's no place for taxes. Of course, I'm not saying that. The people that get caught up, whether you're talking about the complexity of filing an IRS filing, or you look at regressive taxation, that's your middle America that you're referring to, Senator. And that is the reason why people don't trust and don't like the IRS. It's not that we don't want to pay our fair share. It's that it's not an even playing field. It's not because of the rich and the corporations. It's because
you should excuse me. Most of us aren't as knowledgeable of these things as the two of you are. I don't know the impact of tariffs or, what the waste that's taking place at the IRS. But I do know this: when tens of thousands of government employees are told they're losing their jobs literally overnight, that's not the way we're making America great. Who wants to go work for the government now when you never know how long you're going to last? And it all depends upon one or two people making the decision. The hows and the whys. I'm sure there are parts of Trump's budget and Trump's ideas that are really good for the country. But the way it's going about is hurting the country.
Rabbi, what makes America great isn't the government. The government plays a role in us achieving our dreams and living out what.
Tell that to Donald Trump.
All we've talked about is the government. That's not the government facilitates our country. It's not our country. What makes America great is individual liberty and property rights and state sovereignty and parental rights and
you sound like a progressive Democrat.
Yeah, I mean, it's not. And by the way, I used to say this on the radio show all the time. Okay, you don't have to be well informed on specific issues to know what humans inherently want out of life, right? I mean, for the most part, we want a job, we want to put a roof over our head, we want enough money for whatever our vice or hobby is in the world. We want our kids to go to good schools. We want to be able to buy a home. You don't have to, be reading the Wall Street Journal every day to know this. The reality is, because of the government, the American dream, which falls under the umbrella of everything I just mentioned, is getting tougher and tougher to accomplish. And people see that. And I'm not saying Trump has all the answers, but that's the anger that he's tapping into, because the majority of Americans believe it's harder just to get by, which it is, because of policies. And Senator, I agree with you, it's both parties when it comes to all this stuff, okay? But
Hey
it's going
guys, I'm gonna interrupt you for a minute. Richard has had a glitch, and we're almost at the end of our time. So I do have to recognize two of our sponsors, and then I'm going to give you guys the last word to go around and end the show. And we're going to hopefully uh, have you back for another time where Richard is able to get his equipment not having a problem. But anyway, Richard and I are proud to represent the law firm of Barry Glazer. Barry always goes the extra mile for his clients, whether it's been a personal injury, medical malpractice, or nursing home neglect. Barry and his staff, that includes an in-house doctor and nurse, make no apologies for getting top dollar from the insurance companies. His clients are his best advertising. So if you need a lawyer, give Barry Glazer a call at 410-547-8568. Barry Glazer gets results. And Baltimore is a great diner town. The Double T diners are always voted #1 in reader polls. TT stands for totally terrific. For breakfast, lunch, or dinner, you can't beat the enormous menu selections that bring you back again and again. There's Double T locations on Route 40 West, Perry Hall, White Marsh, Bel Air, Laurel, Annapolis, Pasadena, and the EC Diner in Ellicott City. Plus, try By the Docks in Middle River for their Monday night lobster specials. All part of the Double T family. Tell them that Square Off sent you. There's Richard's picture back on the bottom right. I don't know if he's coming back on. There he is.
Let
Hi,
me
Richard.
say this to you, Jayne. I love you, but I got screwed up here. I lost all. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
We can hear you.
Well, I don't know
We
what
had a good show without you, Richard. Don't worry about it. I'm going to yield my closing time to Rabbi Wohlberg.
And Richard,
Exactly. You don't
Richard-
mind him too.
Richard, when we heard that there was something wrong with your equipment, we've known that for years.
So is Annabelle. Listen, everybody. We have to extend a minute. Howard, do you have the other commercials, or did you do
He
that?
did it.
I already did them. I already did them.
Well, great. I lost all power in the House, and I don't know what to say.
And the Senate.
What?
We're all okay. So let us thank you, Richard. We had a great show. Next time we'll do it with you.
Senators, I'm going to, let me do this. I would like to hear myself, if you can extend 5 minutes, if each of you give me just your final thoughts on what you talked about. I had so many things to say here, but I'm sure, Ben, I know you have to go somewhere, so we can't do it over. That's correct?
That's right. I'll tell you what I do. I have to go. As I said, when we get up the timing, I really am tight on time. But I must tell you, it went very well without you, and I think you have a great show. So,
Yeah, Richard, I want to tell you, it's really nice for me to be part of a panel discussion where the people know what they're talking about. and it's an intelligent conversation. It's the kind of conversation that our country needs.
Rabbi, it was a pleasure doing the show with you. And Senator Cardin, I haven't always agreed with you in the past, but thank you very much for the service that you've given. You've always been a statesman on the Hill, and it was an honor to share the stage with you.
Thank you, Jimmy. I appreciate that.
Jayne.
The only thing I'll say is that this is exactly the kind of debate that should be going on.
Yes.
Well, we're going to do one next week if I get Wi-Fi here. I want to thank our audience. I'm sorry I was absent. I was out eating a buffet breakfast, all you can eat. Took a lot of time. Ben, drive carefully to your destination. Rabbi Wohlberg.
Always a pleasure.
Always. Jimmy, you were great. Jayne, I'm sorry that happened because I have to watch the show now to see what happened. All right. Bye, everybody. I'm sorry. Good Lord.
No problem. Okay.
Bye.